Oh.
Welcome back to another episode of season 7 of Double D in its new form, calling out leadership or leadership. Debbie, what is the name?
Well, it's calling in or calling out.
It's calling in or calling out. Yeah, absolutely. We got a really prestigious guest with us today. We're very, very excited.
We are indeed. As most people know, I have advocated and talked about this all the time, but the TMA, so the Marketing Academy, and we have got the person who made the whole of it, and we're going to pick her brains big time and also get your perspective. So, Sherilyn, rather than me talk about you, because I'll be fangirling, so why don't you tell us what you do and why the TMA even exists?
Okay, all right. So the Marketing Academy exists as a place of learning. We're specifically aimed at developing talent within marketing, media, and advertising. We do that because we believe that marketing, media, and advertising can change the world. And if it's an art form or if it's a function, discipline, or industry that can change the world, then it better have the best leaders in it. So we are totally focused on that industry sector and function, and we like to believe that we select the top 1% of talent in our industry around the world. So we operate in UK and EMEA, we operate in the US and in Australia and Asia Pac. And we've been going for 15 years now. And we run 2 main programs with alumni programs that support them. But we have a program for emerging leaders, which is called the Scholarship Program. So that's for those that are just about to take that really, really big step in their careers. They're kind of in their mid-30s, I guess, although we're not ageist, but that's probably the sweet spot. And then we run a fellowship program, which is exclusively designed for chief marketing officers. And that's designed and developed and delivered with McKinsey. And that program is aimed at enabling the CMOs to become CEOs. And what we do is unusual in the way in which we do it, in that we are not for profit. So there's no financial barrier to getting on our programs. They're totally free. And we can only do that because we are generously supported by thousands of people around the world who gift their knowledge, their experience, and their wisdom, working with the cohorts of scholars and fellows every year in every territory to help develop them. So that's people like yourself, Debbie, who act as an executive coach within our programs. So the programs are like plenary learning, like a bit classroom learning, but they're also, we provide them with mentors, industry, very, very senior industry successful players, and every single member of each cohort gets assigned an executive coach, which is really the kind of red thread that goes right the way through their experience. And they experience the program within a cohort of between 20 and 30 people. So we get hundreds of thousands of applications around the world, but we run a very tight selection process in order that we're ensuring that all of the people that do everything for us for free are spending time with the people that can really, really do something with it, because they're the ones that are on the upward curve of their careers. So that in a nutshell, I mean, I could talk the entire podcast just about Marketing Academy, but all you need is a nutshell. I do it because I'm absolutely passionate about the industry. I'm passionate about developing talent, and leadership is at the heart of everything that we teach.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to just sort of really, just for the listeners, to echo back. I've been a guest at some of your events supporting Debbie on the leadership and leadership crusade. And what's really fascinating, I've seen firsthand the alumni and how they lean in and really do connect and make and go extra to stay connected. I mean,
they do.
To make that happen, that's something, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and it was I wish I could explain what the secret sauce was, but I don't think I can. And I wish I was genius enough to have been able to, have designed it this way. I wasn't. But something happens when those cohorts get together. We do operate, we're teaching them very, very much at a heart level. So we go quite deep, quite early on, and they experience it together as a cohort. So there's a huge amount of sharing, and sometimes they're sharing things that they may never have shared in an open forum, especially not with strangers, but sometimes not even with their closest friends and family. And we ensure that there is a safe space, psychologically safe space, in order to do that. And then as soon as people begin to share, then the whole thing just goes on. And because all of the alumni know that the rest of the alumni and all of the other cohorts have been through exactly the same experience and the same learning and the same philosophy, then when we get the groups together, and we do that as much as we can around the world through our alumni programs, there is a little bit of magic that happens in that room and those rooms every time. And it's a huge sense of belonging. There's a huge sense of, it's very warm. There's a big, like a familial sense. There's a huge amount of warmth. And I think it's because everybody does it for nothing, right? It's all so generously given that our scholars and fellows, I believe, feel a bit privileged or grateful, and they want to show how grateful they are, and they want to reciprocate. And so the whole kind of vibe of our stuff is usually really quite special.
But I also think community can sit under this umbrella of a lot of shit that people talk about, but nothing really happens. And I also think there's something really unique, and I'd like to really know, how did you get here? So how did you, Sherilyn, get to where you are now to create something 15 years ago? What was the mind? Where were you going? What were you doing? How did you get here?
Yeah, well, I've spoken about this publicly in other forums and podcasts. I did have a bit of a life-defining moment. So I was, as a career, I was a headhunter, and I was a headhunter for 20 years, and a very successful one. And I bought a company that I did an MBO. So I was the CEO of a company. I did an MBO, I bought it. And it was a very successful, quite sizable executive search business. So top C-suite headhunting, not in marketing, although we would always do a CMO hire if they needed a chief marketing officer. And that was going to be my path. And I was quite entrepreneurial, and I'm the daughter of a female shopkeeper. So my mum was a female entrepreneur before they even had a title for it. And so I kind of always had the path that I would want to do my own thing. I don't think I'm probably totally unmanageable. So I needed to do something for myself. And I thought that headhunting would be it until I got to my early 40s. And then I crashed, and I crashed in a really, really big way, because I had to accept that whilst I was doing something that I was good at and making money at, and it was using the skills that I had, or at least some of them, I didn't love it at all. I didn't like the industry. I didn't actually like what I was doing. I'd never face into it. I'd never admit that to myself. And what that meant, and I'd been quite successful. So I'd had that taste of monetary success. And I found myself in my early 40s as the main breadwinner, because my husband's been the caregiver. So he's brought up our 3 children while I work. I found myself in my early 40s totally burnt out, extremely stressed, not sleeping, not having breaks. It's 16-hour days, drinking way too much because I was actually self-medicating because I was so unhappy. And I was on what I've often called the treadmill of doom. You know, you get a little bit of success, and then you think, and then you get frightened of losing it. So you have to work a bit harder just to keep what you've got, and then you've got to get more. And I was on this treadmill, and it nearly killed me. So I had an illness that could have killed me overnight. It was the best thing that could possibly happen to me. Literally forced me into a situation to say, if I keep going like this, I won't live for very long. So what do I need to do in my life to bring to stop this discordance, you know, inside me, this sort of rip in my soul that was saying, I'm doing something that I'm good at and that's making me money, but I'm hating every minute of it. How do I bridge that gap? And if I'm honest, over a 2-year period, that's when a lots of different fortunate events happened that led me to creating the Marketing Academy, mainly because I was passionate about leadership development. I had always been, and I was on the board of the Living Leader, which is a company that now provides their program as an element of our scholarship. I was on their board. I went through their Train the Trainer program. They taught me, that really gave me a framework to understand what leadership was, because I don't think I knew before then. And I'd become passionate about developing talent. And you can't do that as a headhunter. It's highly transactional. You know, as soon as you place somebody in a business, you have to walk away. You let go of the outcome. You can't even really talk to them again because you're not allowed to poach them. So you can't really have a relationship with them post-placing them. And that would drive me nuts. So I was passionate about leadership. And I was also very, very passionate that companies needed to have the CMO in the boardroom. You know, I kept thinking this is such a powerful function that every business has got, which is their marketing organization, and it's undervalued, underinvested in, and very rarely sits in the boardroom. And yet they're the people that understand the customer, you know the pulse of the customer, the heartbeat, knows what's happening in the market. They're great communicators, they're great storytellers, everything you need in leadership. And yet they're never invited to be in the room where it happens. And those two things combined, I knew I wanted to do something around developing talent. I was passionate that marketing, media and advertising could change the world. And over time, I'm meeting a lot of people, and there were 200 people involved in what we ultimately launched as the Marketing Academy. You know, I didn't do it on my own. I didn't have all of the ideas on my own. I didn't even have executive coaching in it at the beginning, when I just sort of drew out the straw man one-pager. And then I met Catherine Tulper, who is our lead coach globally. And she said, well, I haven't got executive coaching in it. And I said, no, Catherine, I can't pay people. And if I can't, you know, our mentors are paid shit ton of money. So I don't mind asking them for their time. But most executive coaches do that for a living. And if they're coaching my guys, then they give up revenue. So I can't possibly ask them. And she said, I think you'll find, Sherilyn, that executive coaches are the most generous people on the planet. And I believe that if we position this in the right way, you will have people that will want to do this. And I said, well, I don't know any. So can you help? And she did. So, you know, she was responsible for either that element, which is now the element that, other than the leadership and the mentoring stuff, that the scholars talk about the most in terms of making step change and transformational change, the fellows as well. So, so a lot of people coming together over a period of time where I was going through this sort of seeking how to make a dent in the world, how to make a difference, how to build and develop and nurture talent. I was ill in 2008 and we launched in February 2010.
Okay.
And that was it. I never looked back.
I love it. And I also love how clear you are that you were focused on leadership. And around about 2012 in our business life cycle, we were at a retreat in Scotland and we had people from all over the world at this event. And we had this moment, didn't we, where our time stopped. If you can imagine a movie scene where lightning strikes and time freezes, we were doing a leadership experiment with people from all over the world with a real business task that actually happened, and both groups of 6 failed. So we discovered this leadership erosion moment that across any sector, any role in the boardroom had started. I was a chairman at the time, and that's when we started talking about leadership deficit officially, before it became what is today in the podcast with you, leadership or leadership, which leads me to a simple question, right? Leadership that's good is easy to describe, but there's a lot of leader shit, right?
Yes.
And you sound like someone who knows and understands leadership needs a rethink. I find lots of people don't think that. They teach stuff that's old, out of date. They don't accept that our audiences are changing. They're changing massively. They're faster, more efficient with tech than they've ever been before. What do you think about leadership today? And is it as big a problem as we think it is?
It's huge. I think it's a bigger problem now than it ever has been, especially as we're just about to have, nearly 6 different generations in the workforce, which has never happened before. So 4 years' time, the Gen Alphas join the workforce. The baby boomers may not have retired by then. So, you know, we've got the broadest spread of generational disparity in the workplace. We've never been there, right? So we've never had that. And here's the biggest challenge that I've seen, and I've been working quite a bit on this over the last couple of years. Anybody of a certain generation, and so I'm really talking Gen X and baby boomers and the very top end of Gen Y, we were led via leadership in your vernacular, right? The leadership style that I grew up with when I was in my 20s was diametrically opposed to any form of leadership that is going to inspire the lower end of Gen Ys and the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, because it's diametrically opposed. And it's a really big problem, because badly led people lead people badly. And we were led badly. And we got a choice at that moment. You know, as parents, you've always got, you're a certain type of child, you've got a certain type of parent. And at certain points you go, I am never going to be like that. I am never going to say those things to my children, or I'm going to emulate everything I've seen. And at some point, you make a choice, you make a decision, or you haven't thought about it. So my mum used to drive me nuts. She was my absolute role model and the love of my life, but she used to drive me nuts. I can't tell you how many times when my kids were growing up, my mum's words would come out of my mouth. I would literally go, you are not leaving this house dressed like that. And then I go, oh, what the fuck am I doing? What
That's
am I?
right.
Oh my God. When my mum said that to me, I would go straight upstairs. I'd get changed. I'd put my skimpy outfit in a carrier bag. I'd go to the pub and I'd get changed in the pub toilets and I'd wear it anyway. So I knew that that's what those words would create. And yet I never put that gap between, you know, the stimulus and response, you know, the thing that's happening to me and my response to it, to choose to go, oh my God, darling, you look fantastic in that. Because the outcome would be the same. She's going to wear it anyway, right? Do I want to completely destroy her confidence? Or do I want to build up her confidence, make sure that she looks beautiful? I might say, have you thought about taking a coat? It's a bit cold out, right? So the challenge that we have is that that's how we lead. So if we're not really mindful about it, we will repeat those same patterns of behavior that we hated when we were younger. When we used to go, oh my God, I'm never going to lead like that. If I ever get into a position of management, I'm never going to do it that way. We get into that position, we default back to that behavioral learning that we've had, and we behave in exactly the same way. And the challenge that we've got is the younger generation see that, they see us role modeling, they've got no other context. So we're going to cause our own, you know, cycle to the bottom if we don't think about changing things. But it is now, you know, the flip opposite. You know, it's not be the first in the office, laugh to leave, don't show your soft underbelly, never cry, don't take your personal life to work, you know, got to wear a mask all the time, you know, women need to speak louder than men. All of this shit that we had back then. Money is everything. Control and command, drive by fear, motivate by fear, reward with the carrot. Bollocks to all of that. It's gone. It's archaic. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of need was freaking 60 years ago. Hertzberg's hygiene motivating factors. Oh my God. You know, the motivating factors now aren't just recognition, it's Wi-Fi. And don't give me a career, just give me a job. I just want experience for a year and then I'm going to fuck off somewhere else, because what I really want to be doing is working in Bali with a laptop. And don't ask me to come and work in the office. Why would I do that? For 4 years, you trusted me to work at home, and now you're asking me to come back into the office. What, you don't trust me anymore? Well, sod off then. I'm not going to work for you. So it's so different to how we brought up. And it needs to, you know, we are the ones that have to change. Otherwise, we're just going to create our own in our own image. And we were not good. It was not good.
And it's so refreshing to hear. And I think this is the thing that we've discovered is when you start having this conversation with people, everybody's got an example of leadership, but they get sucked. It's like osmosis, even though they know, like exactly what you said as a parent, I've done it, you know, we're parents to 5 kids as well. And you do that, don't treat this house like a hotel. And you just think, what just say, like rewind. But it's also, how do you stop that? So in the examples of your career and also what you're doing with TMA and what you're experiencing, the stories you're hearing as well, is what are your examples of knowing, how do you stop that osmosis? How do you, and I suppose it's not even necessarily stopping it, it's the progression, right? It's got to be stepped because it's such a big gap now. It's scary. But what are your examples?
I think the biggest challenge is that people just don't know. They're just not aware enough, right? So you have to have external stimuli to shine a light on it. And then people have literally got to take a beat. You know, they've got to pause. It is no good just reacting to stuff, especially in the crisis, in the heat of the moment. There's a lot of shit happening. You know, all the industries are struggling at the moment. Now that could very well lead to reactiveness. And, you know, when we're under pressure, we're likely to even more revert to a standard behavioral learned type, right? So when the world's turned into shit, everybody goes into command and control mode. But if they stay in command and control mode for too long, you know, the people start to push back and say, no, you've been standing on my neck for too long now. I'm beginning to fight back. And then you've lost them. But the challenge that I feel is that the leaders, managers, whatever, people in positions of influence, don't give themselves breathing space, because you really just need to be a little more intentional and mindful about the way in which you're showing up. And some of that it does require you, which is why we do this in our programs. It requires you to go quite deep into why you are showing up in the way that you are showing up anyway. Like what were the moments, the experiences, the conversations, or the people, or the things that you observed when you were growing up, which is literally where most of this learning takes place. And I'm talking from childhood to like through the formative 20s and maybe early 30s, but certainly the formative teens and 20s. What were you experiencing that you are holding on to that has made you who you are? And is that serving you? Is it right? Are you comfortable with that? Are you at the absolute top of your game? Are you showing up at your actual best when you're holding on to all of that stuff? Or can you just take a moment and look at what got you here and then realize that you have the choice to not continue to believe in it, to literally shift the way in which you think about that? And in my experience, nobody takes the time. They just don't take the time. It's busy. You know, life is busy. There's enormous amount of pressure on in every function and industry at the moment. But a little bit doesn't take a lot. And this is real common sense stuff, right? It's not very much common practice. It doesn't take a lot of time to really go, why am I reacting in this way? Why am I feeling like this? Why have I just got really defensive from the way in which that person just spoke to me? What's going on for me? And how might I choose to think about it if I knew I could change the way I'm going to respond? So that takes a moment, but it doesn't take a long moment. It's just that people haven't got those tools. Those tools aren't taught, unfortunately. And that's why we do what we do.
It's really interesting because I absolutely agree with you that we often find in our coaching that you'll be in an instant change moment where you do a technique, the impact happens immediately, and you watch the person wrestle with the fact that that can't be true. You know? And they so prefer that sitting on the nail they used to sit on before that felt more familiar, that you can't have just deleted that. No, surely, can I have it back, please? And you are right. It only takes a second.
But we don't like to let go of the embedded beliefs. We don't like to. We don't like to be challenged. We don't like to think that we've been doing it wrong. We don't like that. But the reason why we don't like that is that we're being driven by fear or pride or ego. And so, you know, we will always say when you're confronted with something, try looking at through empathy, compassion, and love instead of fear, pride, and ego, because you'll look at it completely differently if you come from that place. So, you know, I know a lot of training and a lot of training companies, unfortunately, somebody will go on a training course and they'll learn the whole sort of set of skills and tools and techniques, and they'll go home and then they'll forget about them. And when they're at home, they won't use any of them. And then when they go into the workplace, they might pick up a few bits and pieces. If it doesn't go in at a heart level, if it doesn't shift some thinking right inside, it's not going to stick. And the kind of learning that we do is about your whole self. We do not separate the person who shows up at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon on your sofa versus the person who turns up at the boardroom on the Monday. To us, you are one person, and the philosophy of leadership that we teach incorporates the whole. And that's why I think we do see, fortunately, we see epiphany moments, and we definitely see moments of personal confrontation. But firstly, it's the learning is spread over a long period of time. So our programs last 9 months, part-time, but 9 months. So it's not just a 2-day course you go on, it's 9 months. And then everything is reaffirmed through the different streams of learning. You know, they get something slightly different from the mentors because they're giving advice about what they would do in their situation. But a scholar or a fellow can really take that on board to challenge themselves. And then, of course, we've got the executive coaching, which really enables them to think about how they are going to embed this and what changes that they're going to make it right inside themselves to enable them to flourish. So I think that there's a lot of training that's very good training that is for skill set, but that's not that isn't what we do. I wouldn't even say we're a training organization, right? I think it's developmental programming. And I think that that's the thing that holds people back. There's not enough of what we do out there at all.
No.
And I feel it's been undervalued in the workspace. You know, there's still, if I was running any kind of company of any size, my entire, you know, board would have executive coaches, and we'd have that, you know, 3 levels down. There aren't very many companies that will do that. They'll get a coach for their CEO, possibly a few of the C-suite, but it won't take it down. Some of our scholars are 30 years old with an executive coach. You know, it makes a profound difference.
What's really interesting is, we rebranded our business and we called it "and" with a full stop, and the full stop is fundamental, is because what we find is most people find it counterintuitive. Right, you're asking me to stop. Well, if I stop, it's all going to fall over. You know, it's all going to be a disaster. And we said, you know what? Actually, shit will hit the fan, because if you've not stopped before, it is going to feel like, oh, this is all going wrong. But it's because we get sucked into that societal expectation. And I think one of the things that we get really frustrated with is that one size fits all. And then people get stuck. You know, I love the fact that you challenge Maslow's hierarchy and all of those things, because it's, you know, they're 70 years old.
That's right.
Anymore, you know, we don't communicate the same way. We don't interact the same way. We don't travel the same way. We don't even have the same.
And it was taught wrong anyway.
Well, that's not his original plan either.
Yeah.
And it's that interpretation, isn't it? But I think I'd really like to know, just one final question in regards to this generational extension that we've got. We've now got AI in there. We've now got all of these things. You know, we're going to have companies that are going to have AI employees. The first time ever, non-human employees that has never exhibited itself before. Knowing particularly the creativity and behind marketing and how it can change the world. It's storytelling, it's vision, it's human. It is, that to me is the most human industry that we could be in. How do you see it evolving, as in stepping away from leadership and saying, no, actually, this is what leadership is. Doesn't matter if AI is involved, because I actually think there's benefits to it. And of course, there's negatives, there is to everything. How do you see that in your specific industry?
Well, I think that leadership is going to be the key to us really grappling what AI can do for us. Look, my personal view, it is a tool. It's just another really fabulous tool. And if it's a tool, then it can be used for really bad shit, or it can be used to change the world. And the only difference between whether it's shit or whether it's superb will be the intent behind the people who use it. And so shit culture is is a meaningful culture based on a high level of ethics, of morals, of collaboration, of empathy, of compassion, you know, love, sharing, generosity, openness, transparency, all of the things that the younger generations are demanding. But if the leadership philosophy of organizations has that kind of direction, then that's the direction they're going to point this tool in. Organizations that are culturally not aligned like that are likely, if we're not careful, to be using that tool for something that's bedded in greed, ego, power, you know, winning. And that's where the leadership will sit, and that's the impact it will have on the world. So phenomenal leadership, exceptional leadership, I honestly believe will be the make or break as to whether AI becomes the biggest world enabler or its destructor. And it will be the leaders that do it, and people will blame AI. But it's like, you know, the Americans blame the Americans talk about the gun laws, right? And you've got the people against the gun laws going, yeah, but guns don't shoot people, humans do. Well, which I fully agree with. AI is not going to destroy the world. The people using AI are going to destroy the world. So what kind of leaders do we want in power? What kind of leaders do we want holding the button, you know, with the fingers on the button in every context, you know, geopolitical, you know, right down to how a company's being run, or how a individual content creator is utilizing AI to, I don't know, sell a can of Coke. The intent behind it that's got to come from leadership. And if it's exceptional leadership, it will be great. And if it isn't, it will be bad.
That's a delightful answer. Really, really, really delighted to hear it. It's refreshing. Sometimes in our world, in our business, we feel quite alone, I think, with the leadership and leadership crusade. And what we often find in our interactions, both online and around the world, is people are passive. So they don't jump in and say, yes, that's leadership. There's too much of a concern about what the other person might perceive from what you've said.
But you've still got
So you talking like this is so delightful.
Yeah, but the younger generations aren't going to hold back, right? My daughter, I've got a 19, so I've got a Gen Z at 19, and I've got two Gen Ys at 29 and 30. And my younger one will not hold back, and she will hold to account. And she'll go, I can't believe those words just came out of your mouth. That's totally inappropriate. You can't say that, or he can't say that, or oh my God, have you just seen this thing? They call it out. They're not going to stand for it. And so I'm hopeful because that, as long as we could screw it up as parents, and believe me, we have the capability to do that. But they're being brought up by the Gen Ys now, right?
Yeah.
So they're gonna be brought up differently to us. And hopefully their parents at least will have more money. They might not, the Gen Zs might not, but the parents who are bringing them up might be. And I believe that they want a fairer, more equitable world. They are hardwired for inclusivity. I mean, hardwired in a way that we just weren't, because we didn't see it, right? We didn't see inequality. We didn't see racial discrimination. We didn't see homophobia. It happened everywhere. That was just how the world ran, right? We didn't know that it was bad. When I start thinking about the words that my mum and dad used to use, they were, this is back in the 60s and 70s, and the words they would use to describe people that they knew who looked a bit different. And even then I would think, that's not right, but it was all I heard. Well, my kids now, they're like, oh my God, they're sexually fluid, they're gender fluid, they don't give a shit what they look like, and they're going to start calling out bad behavior in a way that I never did. I was treated like shit for years in one company that I worked for. Terrible, toxic environment. Did I ever call it out? No. Would I go home and cry about it? Absolutely. Would I call it out? No. Too scared of being fired, being out of work. Oh my God, that's it. My career be over because I'll never get another job, because that's what we were taught. This generation aren't going to care about that. They'll know they can walk into anything. They want the gig, right? They don't want the job title. They don't really want the money. They want the freedom. They want the flexibility. They want the experiences. They want to be off doing all really exciting things. No more do they want a job for life. That's going to drive a completely different set of behaviors. And I honestly believe they're going to start calling it out. We're not quite seeing it yet. And there's a lot of stuff to be calling out at the moment, especially on the political world stage. But I think there's this undercurrent that's gonna bubble as soon as those Gen Zs really get up the ladder within the current workforce. I think we're going to see some real shifts happening, so long as we start role modeling quickly enough.
Yeah, I totally, I'm a optimist. That's what my little mini title that I give myself to kind of drive and support myself, to think we've got 4 grandboys as well, and we look at them and just think that spirit that they have about them is really incredible. And I feel like you do, that there is it's exciting. It excites me that there is an opportunity of us to really have these very difficult conversations and these challenging conversations, but be able to sit in there and go, I never thought. We call it each other's maps, and we're so busy stuck on our own map of the world that we don't consider all of these other maps of the world. We don't even share it, or we don't actually, if that's, I'm feeling this, I wonder what they're feeling. We don't do that. And I do think it's our generation and upwards. I'm 54. I sit in that space now and go, hold on, that's how I'm thinking. What do you think? You're 24. We lived in a life of homogeny, and whereas now difference is something to be embraced. I think there's still nervousness around it, but it's super exciting. So I genuinely appreciate your voice in this. It's really exciting to hear.
I'm quite passionate about it.
It's really great to hear. I agree with Debbie. I think for anyone listening to this episode, that it's like drinking from a fire hose, and I think, but it's the right one. It's the right one, right? You should be getting soaked in it. At school, you have the big red one on the coil. Let's get it out and let's fire it everywhere, right? Because it's the truth. There's truth in this, right? And
Yeah.
just taking some of your points reflectively about how leaders choose to use AI, understanding that modeling leadership, regardless of our situations, is the only way forward, right? And getting it right, being open to difference. Is there a single sentence you'd like to finish this episode with that perhaps tops this all off from your perspective?
Okay, well, I'll steal one from the Living Leader because it's a cornerstone of the philosophy that we teach, and you should get her on your podcast, get Penny on your podcast. She's amazing. But one of her strongest philosophies that I believe in is that it's not just how good a leader you are, it is about how many leaders you develop. And if you're a leader that's developing other leaders, then that's extraordinary and exceptional. So you can be a good leader and influence in all of the ways that we've discussed. But if your reason for being isn't to ensure the ripple effect of your learning down in the generations, then you're going to leave less of a legacy. So really focusing on what other people need from you to either role model or learn that will enable them to be exceptional leaders, I think that's the mark of outstanding leadership. And if you're doing that, then you cannot possibly be doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, and it's music to our ears, because we challenge people when they say the academic, or they make leadership this kind of academic intellectual thing, and we just say actually it's don't be a dick and always help other people succeed. And it's that simple. We do not need to overcomplicate leadership.
Be a good human.
Be a good human.
Yeah.
Be a good human. I think don't be a dick is the best one. Somebody said to me once, whenever I come to an academy thing, one thing I always notice is that you don't have any dicks. And I go, no, we weed them out. Like we will not work with dicks. And I spoke to a wonderful lady this morning who does some leadership stuff for us down in Australia. And she said, if you do the right thing, you can never be wrong. And I thought, yeah, that's like really simple. And again, it just sounds like real common sense, doesn't it? But it's not common practice. It just isn't. People end up doing shit, especially if they've been treated like shit. That's the dichotomy, right?
Yeah, it is.
That's why I say badly led people lead people badly. It's kind of not their fault, right? It's you can't hold somebody responsible for being shit if they don't know any different. I've worked with CEOs in the past, especially in Australia, where the leadership culture is it's better now, but was quite a way back, 20 years ago. And I remember working with some CEOs, and I'd hear words come out of their mouth, and I go, do you just realize what you just said? Did I just hear you say that? And they go, yeah. And I go, and did you see the impact that you had on that person at the other end of the room? And they go, no, I didn't. And I go, let's just replay that. And let's think about the intent that you had. What did you want that person to feel? And all of a sudden, it's like the scales fall off their eyes. And I've often said, you cannot hold somebody accountable for something they don't know. They can't take responsibility for not knowing what they don't know. So it's ensuring and enabling and inspiring these people to understand what they're doing that can be less than helpful, and the tiny little tweaks that they need to make to be more helpful. That's all it is. Really simple stuff. It's just not done well enough.
Yeah, it's just I'm grinning from ear to ear, because all of the stuff we're working, they're doing some roadshows across America as we speak. But then what's really interesting is we've talked about it's the micro, these tiny nano things. It's not these macro things that we need to do, because it's all about the aggregate, right? We start doing these tiny little things, and it does have a ripple effect, and it does make a difference, and it does fundamentally shift different types of conversations and different types of interactions. So super exciting.
It does. One of my fellows once said, he's fabulous, Ed Smith. He runs marketing for Amazon across Europe, and he does a talk at boot camp, and he often says to my scholars, as soon as you get into a position of influence, so that is one within a hierarchical, right? So your voice is going to be heard. You start talking through a megaphone. You just don't realize it. And you've got to be really careful about the words that are coming out of your mouth, i.e. the behaviors that people are hearing and seeing and witnessing. Because the second you get into any kind of position of authority or power or influence over their life or their success or their pay rise or their promotion, they are hearing you at 10 times the volume, which means that every tiny little small thing you do can completely decimate them or unlock their ability to be exceptional. And you've got to recognize that you have that megaphone, and it's a very privileged position to be in, but one you have to be constantly aware of, because you're under a microscope shouting at the top of your voice. And you've got to be very, very careful that how you're showing up is going to be the way in which it's useful to people and not harmful.
I always
And I
remember
think
the
it's
example.
just a great way of thinking about it.
The example that we read was once about Queen Elizabeth and how somebody had said, oh, she doesn't say very much, but then she'd explained that when I say something, I know that that person is going to remember it for the rest of their life. And I always thought that was what an incredible statement to think, that intentionality.
That's
of
awareness as well.
What comes out of my mouth is they're only going to meet Queen Elizabeth probably once in your life in real terms, if ever. And I'm going to remember it. We're just not aware of that. I think as a parent more so, you recognize it as your kids get older and they're having kids, and you go, oh God, I actually said this to you and I'm really sorry. But I think really incredible. You know, we talk about intentionality all the time, and everybody goes, oh, well, I am intentional. Well, you're not, because you're just spouting verbal diarrhea.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're just responding. Yeah, they're just responding, reacting and spouting and talking because there's a bit of silence and they want to fill it. It's a fascinating area. I'm passionate about it. And I just believe that we should teach it more. I think leadership should be taught in schools. I'm devastated that isn't. We should be teaching children how to listen. We should be teaching them how to communicate. We should be teaching them what empathy and compassion is. Right from nursery school. You know, we're never taught to listen, are we? The biggest superpower of any leader is the ability to listen. We can't shut up for 2 minutes. The second we hear it, the second there's a space, a little bit of silence, we're jumping in to fill it. That's not leadership, but nobody taught us how to listen actively. All of those tiny little things, nobody teaches you how to give feedback. When do you learn how to give feedback? They don't teach it. Occasionally you might find a course on it, but if that were taught in schools, how to compassionately, with care, love and attention, give really valuable feedback, even if it's critical, like it's a criticism. And we taught that from the age of 7, we wouldn't have a leadership problem. We wouldn't have one.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So it needs to go right the way down. Until then, you know, we work with the leaders that we're working with now and hope that ripple cascades out into the world.
Well, may I thank you humbly for your time. This has been an enriching conversation.
It's a pleasure.
And it's a joy to spend some time with a similarly energy-based human being on the same mission as us, to change one leader at a time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. No, thank you for sharing. And we'll definitely contact Penny as well, because I think her work is, as you said, is fantastic.
Oh, you'll love her. She's 83 years old, and like with the energy of a 20-year-old, you'll love her.
So we have to close the podcast formally. It feels like we're just talking amongst friends in an extraordinary way. This has been Ann Double D. We've been calling out leadership, calling in leadership. I got it right. I got it right, Debbie. And we have learned so many things, but there's too many to choose from. But let's just go back to the sentence from a moment ago. If you're a leader today and you're not developing leaders and you're not asking, how can I serve them? Ask yourself this question: what are you doing? See you on the next episode. Thank you, Sherilyn.
Thank you.